Hello students, welcome to our online video tutorial class. I think you have seen the previous video whatever I have made on female reproductive system, and I think you have understood each and every part of the female reproductive system also. So today I am making the last video on the chapter human reproduction, and in this specific video I will be discussing about the fertilization mechanism as well as the embryonic development with parturition and lactation. So first of all, when we will be starting with the fertilization mechanism, we need to know what is fertilization. Fertilization is actually the fusion of the male and female gamete, that is the sperm and ovum, and that mechanism of fusion is commonly known as fertilization, or it can be also called as amphimixis. So let's start with the steps of the fertilization mechanism. These are the steps commonly found during the process of fertilization in between male and female gamete. First step is approximation of gametes. Second step is capacitation. Third step is acrosomal reaction. Fourth step that is a block of polyspermy, and fifth step that is a amphimixis. So one by one step we will be start discussing now. First of all, approximation of the gametes. What does it mean? Approximation of the gametes means when both of the gametes, male gamete and female gamete, both will be coming into the very close contact, or they are approximated with each other. So how this is happening? This is actually involving the transport of the sperm and ova in the female genital tract. We all know that during the time of intercourse or copulation, the male sperm enters within the female reproductive tract and transports up to that specific portion, which is commonly known as isthmus ampullary junction. We have already studied about the structure of fallopian tube, so I think it is very much clear to you what is the isthmus portion, that is of the oviduct, and what is the ampulla portion of the oviduct. So in the junction region of the isthmus and ampulla, that is commonly known as isthmus ampullary junction, in that specific junction the fertilization takes place. And keep it in your mind, the ovum, which is commonly released by the ovary during the time of ovulation, that also arrives to the same region where the sperm reaches, and after going to that region the further fertilization mechanism takes place. Now there are some factors which are controlling male gametes as well as the female gametes for their approximation. So what are the factors? Let's see. Prostaglandin hormone, that is responsible for contraction and relaxation of the uterine muscle during the sperm movement. Oxytocin, that is also responsible for uterine muscle contraction and relaxation when the male gamete moves towards the isthmus ampullary junction. And there is one kind of suction effect is also working, which is actually sucking the sperm cells towards the desired region where the fertilization takes place. In case of female gametes also, the ciliary beads which are present, which cilia are present actually the inner wall of the reproductive tract or fallopian tube, and rhythmic contraction and relaxation of the fallopian tube muscles. Actually these two factors are helping in the propulsion of the female gamete towards the isthmus ampullary junction. Now after approximation of the gamete, next step what is present, that is a capacitation. Capacitation is actually the word means activation of the sperm or the physiological changes which are happened in the sperm, and for that case the sperm has got the capability, or sperm is getting the capability to fertilize the ovum. So the activation of the sperm or the physiological changes occurred in the sperm body which is helping actually the sperm to fertilize the ovum, that is commonly known as capacitation. So let's see, it is the process that allows the acrosome reaction to occur, that means fertilization to occur. So the sperm can penetrate the zona pellucida of the oocyte, that is the outer layer, zona pellucida, that will be generally get penetrated by the help of the sperm, and that is only happening due to capacitation. So the physiological changes that confer on the sperm the ability to fertilize, that are called as capacitation. So overall we have understood the capacitation is such kind of phenomenon by which physiological changes have occurred in the sperm body which allow the sperm to perform the acrosomal reaction to penetrate the zona pellucida before fertilization of the egg, that is called capacitation. Now just we are going for the next slide, and after capacitation the third step is coming, that is acrosomal reaction. What is about this? Acrosomal reaction is nothing else the rupture of the acrosomal vesicle and the release of the hydrolytic enzymes by which sperm will degrade the outer protective covering, such as an example zona pellucida and vitelline membrane, and after that they will actually introduce their male pronucleus within the ovum. So main target of the acrosomal reaction is to break down the zona pellucida layer and vitelline membrane. So the fertilization occurs in ampulla of the oviduct. We all know sperms penetrate the corona radiata layer. Yes, there is one more layer which is present, corona radiata, which is present outside of the zona pellucida. That also get penetrated by the help of this acrosomal reaction, because within acrosomal vesicle there is one kind of enzyme present that is known as hyaluronidase enzyme. Listen carefully, within the acrosomal vesicle there is one enzyme present named hyaluronidase that is responsible for breaking down the hyaluronic acid which is present in between the corona radiata cells. So when the hyaluronic acid present in between corona radiata cells are getting broken down or getting degraded, automatically the penetration of the corona radiata by the help of sperm cell, it is get performed. Now sperm contains the receptor by which it is binding to the protein, that is ZP3, zona pellucida 3 protein, which is present on the surface of the zona pellucida, because after corona radiata whatever the layer of the ovum is coming, that is zona pellucida. So for binding with the zona pellucida 3 protein which is present on the zona pellucida, sperm cells, they are having receptors, and just the interaction in between sperm cell receptor and ZP3 protein on the zona pellucida happens, automatically the acrosomal vesicle ruptures. That means the acrosomal reaction takes place, and on that time acrosin, named one enzyme released from the sperm, that allows it to penetrate the zona pellucida membrane as well as the next membrane layer. So not only acrosin, with that acrosomin, lysine, various other kind of enzymes are also releasing, which are exclusively responsible for degrading the zona pellucida layer. So this is actually the acrosomal reaction, which is exclusively, we have understood, it is required for perforating the corona radiata layer as well as the zona pellucida layer. Going for the next mechanism or the next step of the fertilization, and that is blocks to polyspermia, block of polyspermy. What is actually the block of polyspermy? Block of polyspermy means when actually one sperm trying to perform the acrosomal reaction and trying to degrade the corona radiata as well as the zona pellucida membrane, like that same sperm, several other sperms are also performing same function. So on that time we all know that only one sperm will be get accepted by the help of ovum, other sperms will not be getting accepted. So for removing those sperms, the ovum is actually performing or following few mechanisms, and those mechanisms are actually collectively responsible for blocking the entry of the other sperms, and that is known as block of polyspermy. So when multiple sperms are trying to enter within the ovum, trying to penetrate the corona radiata, zona pellucida layer of the ovum, on that time, except one sperm which has came first, other sperms are getting blocked by some mechanisms performed by the ovum, and those mechanisms are collectively called as block of polyspermy. So let's see whatever the types of blocks of polyspermy. There are two mechanisms under this block of polyspermy. One is first block of polyspermy, another one is slow block of polyspermy. So what is actually happening during the first block of polyspermy? On contact of the first sperm, sodium plus ions start diffusing into the oocyte from the extracellular space. That means just the first sperm diffusing or start penetrating the corona radiata and zona pellucida layer, Na plus ion which are present surrounding the ovum in the external medium, those will start diffusing into the oocyte from the extracellular fluid. And what has happened for that case? Just the sodium plus ion has entered within the ovum, automatically the inner layer of the ovum is getting positively charged. But we all know the acrosomal vesicle surface or the sperm head surface is commonly also positively charged due to presence of some proteins. So positively charged inner layer of the ovum and the positively charged sperm head both will repulse each other, and automatically for a temporary time being all of the sperms will get repulsed from their normal position. That means those sperms which were trying to penetrate the corona radiata and zona pellucida layer, those will be getting blocked, those will be repulsed from their original position due to creation of positive charge on the inner surface of the vitelline membrane. But the problem is, after 1 or 2 minutes, those sperms which has been get blocked or which specific sperms have been repulsed, they will again return back and again start trying to enter through the zona pellucida and corona radiata. So on that time what is happening? Second time when the sperms will again start entering, calcium 2 plus released by the oocyte into the endoplasmic reticulum as part of the preparation of the cell division. So this is obviously the part of the slow block of polyspermy, when the sperm will again start entering, calcium 2 plus released by oocyte, endoplasmic reticulum, and that is actually the part of the cell division. Next, what is happening? There is a step which is happening known as cortical reaction. That means some specific granules which are present in the plasma membrane, those are ruptures, and by rupturing, the contents of those specific cortical granules, those are getting released into the extracellular space. Just those specific cortical granule secretions are getting released into the extracellular space. Automatically what is happening? The zona inhibiting proteins destroy the sperm receptors. So zonal inhibiting proteins are also present on the surface of the zona pellucida. Those will start destroying the sperm receptor. So this is another mechanism. But in case of cortical reaction, what is happening? When the cortical granules are rupturing, automatically the content of the cortical granules, those will be releasing outside and making one specific extra covering layer, so that the further the sperms can't penetrate the ovum. Third mechanism I have told, in case of slow block of polyspermy, zonal inhibiting proteins which are present on the surface of the zona pellucida, they will start destroying the sperm receptors so that they can't again penetrate. Sperm already bound to the receptors are forced to detach. So which sperms already remain attached to those receptors, they are forced like this mechanism to get detached from the zona pellucida layer. So in the slow block of polyspermy, actually 3 different mechanisms we have seen how they are blocking the entry of the sperms for permanent. Second time when the sperm enters, calcium 2 plus released by the oocyte, and obviously this is released by the endoplasmic reticulum, and that is preparing for the cell division. Automatically the sperms can't get the entry. Second, cortical reaction, here also same thing, cortical granules, they will rupture with the plasma membrane, so that the internal secretions of the cortical granules, they will be getting released into the extracellular space and forming one membrane or extra covering, so that the sperms can't penetrate, and that specific covering is commonly known as fertilization membrane. That also, it's not written, but I am telling you, that is known as fertilization membrane, so that the other sperms, they can't enter. Third thing is that on the surface of the zona pellucida, zona inhibiting proteins are present which will destroy the sperm receptors. And keep it in your mind, which sperms are actually, they are bound by their receptor to the zona pellucida. They are actually forced by this mechanism to get detached from the zona pellucida, and automatically those sperms which are attached by their receptor, those are getting detached, those are getting dissociated, and this is the permanent dissociation, permanent block. So for that reason, always keep it in your mind. This is fast block, can be also called as temporary block of polyspermy or first block of polyspermy. This is happening first, this is happening very fast or quick manner, and this is also very temporary. But slow block of polyspermy is the second block of polyspermy or permanent block of polyspermy. Clear? And this is obviously happening in second after the first block. So this is overall the block of polyspermy, by which the entry of one sperm is only allowed, entry of other sperms are getting totally prohibited or not allowed or blocked. Going for the next mechanism or the last mechanism of the fertilization, that is amphimixis. We all know sexual reproduction is a mode of reproduction that involves the fusion of the female gamete and the male gamete, and during the fertilization the fusion of these two gametes are actually commonly known as amphimixis. Actually, if you go to the depth, amphimixis means the fertilization or the fusion in between male and female pronucleus. Actually, when the sperm is penetrating the coronal radiata and zona pellucida layer, after that when it will penetrate the vitelline membrane also, then the single sperm which has penetrated only, other sperms obviously get blocked, but that specific sperm which has penetrated, its male pronucleus will be getting transferred within the ovum, because within the ovum also the female pronucleus present. So that male pronucleus is going to close proximity to the female pronucleus rather, and start rotating that female pronucleus for a while. So when the male pronucleus are getting totally tired, energy is getting totally exhausted, then the male pronucleus will fertilize or will fuse with the female pronucleus, and they will be forming initially a dicaryonic condition, and then it will be getting converted into the zygote. And this mechanism is exclusively known as amphimixis. That means coming to the closer proximity, male and female pronucleus, rotating the female pronucleus by the help of the male pronucleus for a while, then the male pronucleus will get tired and they will just associate with the female pronucleus and forming a zygote structure that is containing single nucleus, and this mechanism is known as amphimixis. So I think all of the 5 steps whatever I have discussed here, which are related with the fertilization mechanism, that is very much clear to each and every one. Now we are going to the next slide, and this is the slide. Here we will be discussing that how the sex determination in human baby is performed, and this is only one calculation, nothing else. Suppose the father is always male, and that's why their chromosomal configuration is XY, and mother is a female, that's why their chromosomal configuration is XX. So when the father will be producing their gametes, obviously they will be containing either X chromosome containing gametes, that's sperms, or Y chromosome containing gametes. And in case of mother, obviously they are XX, that means they are all gametes, that means all ovums will be X chromosome containing. Now when the gametes of father and mother will start fertilizing each other, so whatever the type of results we can get, if this X chromosome containing sperm will fertilize with X chromosome containing ovum, automatically we will be getting one individual with XX, and that individual will be obviously female. If this specific X chromosome containing sperm fertilize with another X chromosome containing ovum, on that case also the same progeny will take birth, that is XX chromosome containing, and that progeny will be also female. Now if the Y chromosome containing male gamete, that is sperm, will fertilize with the X chromosome containing ovum, obviously on that time the offspring will take birth, that is XY chromosome containing, and that offspring will be obviously male. And the last one, if the Y chromosome will fertilize with the X chromosome of the Y chromosome containing sperm will fertilize with the X chromosome containing ovum of the mother, obviously that will be also male in the sex or gender. That means overall out of these 4 progenies, 50%, that means 2 will be female and 50% will be male. So this is actually the probability. So always in case of human reproduction, this specific probability is not followed, but if 4 offsprings will be taken birth, so automatically it is a documentation, or this is a general calculation by which we can say that 50% will be the male offspring taking birth and 50% the female offspring will take birth. Okay, but commonly whatever it is happening in the real, that is quite different from this result. Okay, just going for the next point, and the next point is the last point of this chapter, that is a mechanism of embryonic development. That means when the zygote will be getting formed after the amphimixis or after the fertilization, obviously that specific zygote will be further entering within the embryonic developmental procedure. So we will be seeing step by step whatever the step by step embryonic developmental procedure. Obviously, first step is the divisional phase, where the cells present within the zygote, it will start dividing mitotically, and that is known as cleavage. Second one, morula formation. Morula will be getting converted into the blastula, and the process of blastula formation is commonly known as blastulation. After getting produced blastula, that will be getting implanted in the inner wall of uterus, that is the endometrium, and it will be getting embedded also within that uterine lining. Next, the gastrula will be getting formed, and that is known as gastrulation. Next step, that is a placenta formation takes place, and that is known as placentation. Next, after formation of placenta, obviously the organogenesis will take place, and that is containing morphogenesis and differentiation, both of the steps. And parturition and lactation will be the last two steps during the childbirth and after childbirth feeding of the milk. So let's start with the first step, that is a cleavage. We all know cleavage is the mechanism by which the cell, zygote cell rather, it will start dividing mitotically and forming a cell mass, and that is commonly known as cleavage. Keep it in your mind, when the zygote will be start dividing mitotically, it will be forming 2 cell, 4 cell, 8 cell and 16 cell stage. So these 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 6 and 16 to 32, like that the cell number when it will be increasing. Obviously keep it in your mind that is this rapid increase of the cell number is happening due to rapid mitotic cell division. And obviously during the division, cytoplasmic division will happen first, that is cytoplasmic division, that is cytokinesis, and then the nuclear division. Both will take place. And keep it in your mind how many number of cells will be getting produced within the cell mass. That is the next discussing topic. But the thing is that whatever the cells will be getting produced, those are commonly known as blastomeres. The cells which are getting produced during this cleavage procedure, those daughter cells will be commonly known as blastomeres. One more thing here I want to share with you, that is the blastomeres which will be getting produced. They are all remain surrounded by the help of zona pellucida membrane. The zona pellucida membrane which was present in the ovum, it was not totally degraded during the time of fertilization. Only one small portion, the perforation has been created through which the sperm has entered, but remaining portion of the zona pellucida remain intact. So for that reason it is actually surrounding all of the blastomeres after formation of multiple cells during the cleavage. First of all, due to the cleavage, whatever the stage it will be getting forming, that is known as morula, because zygote is getting divided into 8 cell or 16 cell stage, and that 8 cell or 16 cell stage is commonly known as morulous stage. And keep it in your mind, it has the appearance of mulberry appearance, and this morula will be only further getting divided into blastula into the next step. This is the structure of the morula. It is a solid ball like structure, and it is getting formed by 3 days. And again I am saying it is the early stage in the post fertilization development, and they are dividing mitotically, that is by the cleavage. Morula is containing 8 to 16 cell only, and that has the mulberry appearance, and it is a solid ball like structure taking 3 days to form the morula. Next, morula will be getting further divided. Again it will be start dividing mitotically, and it will be forming 32 and 64 cell stage. So that 32 to 64 cell stage, whatever it will be forming or it will be get formed from the morula, that is commonly known as blastula. And the process of this blastula formation is commonly known as blastulation. This blastula in human, it can be also called as blastocyst, because cyst word means cavity. Within the blastula the cavity is present, that's why it is known as blastocysts. So let's see the structure of the blastocyst or blastula. There is a presence of outer cell layer. This is the outer cell layer I am talking about. This is commonly known as trophoblastic cell layer or trophoblast. And there is a presence of inner cell mass. This is the embryoblast, or it can be also called as inner cell mass only. Except this inner cell mass and trophoblast, there is a huge cavity present, and that specific cavity is known as blastocele, and that is filled with the fluid. Okay, keep it in your mind, from this blastocele, the fluid which is obtained by this inner cell mass, by obtaining those that fluid, inner cell mass is getting growth and development, because the fluid which is present in the blastocele, that is containing huge quantity of nutrients. So those nutrients are obtained by the help of this inner cell mass, and entire the layer, outer layer, epidermal layer, that is commonly known as trophoblast. And specifically in case of this trophoblast also, the roof portion of the trophoblast or the blastocyst or blastula, whatever you can say, the roof portion is commonly known as blastoderm. Blastoderm is the roof portion of the trophoblast. And remaining the structure, I have already told, inner cell mass, blastocele, that is fluid filled, and from that fluid this inner cell mass will be getting nourishment. So this is overall the structure of the blastula, and formation of this structure from the morula, that is 32 to 64 cell stage, that is taking place by the process called as blastulation. Next, after formation of the blastula will start moving through the fallopian tube towards the uterus. Keep it in your mind, when it will enter within the uterus, it will adhere with the inner layer of the uterus, that is called endometrium. First of all, it will adhere, and after that it will get embedded. So that mechanism of getting adhered with the uterus inner lining, endometrium, is commonly known as implantation. So let's see what is implantation. The trophoblast layer gets attached to the endometrium layer, and the inner cell mass also gets differentiated as the embryo. Keep it in your mind, when the blastula will be start moving towards the uterus, and when it will be coming to the close contact of the endometrium, then the trophoblast cell layer is only getting associated with the endometrium cell layer, not the inner cell mass. And the inner cell mass, what is the fate is there, inner cell mass will start dividing and forming and got differentiated into embryo. After attachment, the uterine cell divides rapidly and covers the blastocyst. So automatically, when the uterine cell will start dividing, automatically those blastocysts, that's blastocyst structure or blastula structure, will be start getting embedded within the endometrial lining. As a result, the blastocysts become embedded in the endometrial lining of the uterus. Just now I have told, this is called as implantation, and it leads to the pregnancy. So just the endometrial cell lining will start divide rapidly, and the blastula will be getting embedded within that. Automatically the pregnancy period, in case of that female, it will be getting started. In the figure also you can also getting clear, that is the trophoblast layer is getting adhered with the surface of the endometrium, and in the opposite side the inner cell mass is actually present, and this inner cell mass will be getting divided into embryo. Actually in this figure, whatever you can see, this is it is shown actually inner cell mass is getting adhered with the uterine lining, endometrium, but it is not true. Rather, the trophoblastic cell layer will be getting adhered with the inner cell lining of the uterus, and the inner cell mass will be getting present in the opposite area, opposite pole, and that will divide further to form the embryo, and this trophoblast layer will be getting adhered, and it will be getting further the uterine lining cells also, it will start dividing, and it causes the that specific blastula cell or blastula configuration, it will be getting embedded, and that is implantation. After implantation, when the entire blastula structure has got implanted, afterwards the gastrula formation it will start. That means the cells which are present within the blastula, they will start moving. That is a morphogenetic movement. That movement is called as morphogenetic movement, and due to the movement, 3 germ layers will be getting produced in that structure, and that structure which will be taking birth by the morphogenetic movement of the cells or blastomeres, that is called as gastrula, and the process of this gastrula formation is commonly known as gastrulation. So here we can see, in case of gastrulation, the 3 germ layers are getting produced. One is ectoderm, second one is mesoderm, and inner one endoderm. And these 3 germ layers are only produced by the process of gastrulation, and this process is entirely happening within the uterine lining when the blastula has got fully implanted. Okay, so 3 germ layers have been produced there. After gastrulation, the next step and the most important step that is taking place or that is happening, that is placentation. What is placentation actually? After implantation, the finger-like projections, it will start appearing on the trophoblast layer, that is commonly known as chorionic villi, which are surrounded by the uterine tissue and maternal blood also. So when the blastula layer has entered with blastula has entered within the endometrium, on that time the trophoblastic layer, it will start forming some finger-like projections or finger-like appearance, and those finger-like projections are commonly known as chorionic villi. And initially you can see that chorionic villi is surrounded by the uterine tissue, because already the blastula has been penetrated the uterine lining, endometrium. So that's why uterine tissue will be present, as well as maternal blood will be also there. The chorionic villi and uterine tissue becomes interdigitated with each other. That means chorionic villi is produced from the blastula side, and another finger-like projections will be getting produced from the maternal side, and that is commonly known as maternal villi, or you can also consider that as a decidua basalis. So both of the finger-like projections coming from the mother side as well as from the blastula side, both will interdigitate each other and jointly forming a structural and functional membrane-like structure, and that specific membrane-like structure is commonly known as placenta. Keep it in your mind, this specific membrane, which has been produced due to the interdigitation of the chorionic villi and maternal villi or decidua basalis, this helps in the supply of the oxygen and nutrients to the embryo, and also responsible for removal of the carbon dioxide. It will be carbon dioxide. So, and the excretory substances. Next, the thing is that placenta connected with the embryo obviously by the help of umbilical cord, because placenta, whatever the membrane is present, which is actually produced due to the interdigitation of the embryonic trophoblast and the maternal decidua basalis. So obviously that placenta will be connected with the embryo by the help of the cord-like structure that is called as umbilical cord. Placenta here can produce various kind of hormone like that HCG, human chorionic gonadotrophin, HPL, human placental lactogen, estrogen and progesterone. Keep it in your mind, these hormones are very much important, and those are responsible for further growth and development of the embryo. And one more thing here, this HCG hormone, which is releasing from the placenta, this hormone can be present in the urine of the mother. So when the urine of the mother will be get tested, automatically this HCG hormone will be, if it will be present in that mother's urine, that means it is getting proved that placenta-like structure has been formed within the mother's body, and that means that individual female is pregnant. Human placental lactogen, that means from the placenta this lactogen like of substance is getting also produced, which is providing the nourishment to the growing embryo, as well as estrogen and progesterone, these two specific hormones which are produced by the help of placenta, these two are also responsible for the embryonic growth and embryonic development. In the later phase, what you can see in the pregnancy, the relaxin is also getting secreted by the ovary, that is actually helping during the relaxation of the uterine muscle when the child birth takes place or the labor pain starts. So this is overall the formation of the placenta. What is placenta? I think you have understood properly. Due to the accumulation of the chorionic villi and maternal villi in an interdigitated manner, that placenta has been formed, and after formation of placenta, obviously that is get connected with the maternal body by the help, or embryonic body by the help of the umbilical cord, through which oxygen as well as the nutrients are getting transferred to the embryo body, and from the embryonic body also carbon dioxide and excretory substances will be returned to the maternal body. And this placenta is also performing a very important function, that is releasing of some hormones HCG, HPL, estrogen and progesterone, and also relaxin is another hormone which is secreted by the ovary. HCG, HPL, estrogen and progesterone, these are responsible for embryonic growth and development, and relaxin is responsible for the relaxation of the uterine muscle during the childbirth. So this is overall the figure where the placenta, this is the membranous structure. Here you can see this is the interdigitations which has been created from the embryo side, and this is commonly known as chorionic villi, and this is the overall membrane, protective membrane, which is known as amnion, and within which the amniotic fluid is present where the baby is growing, and this amnion is surrounded by a membrane that is known as chorion, and this chorion is actually made these finger-like projections, those are known as chorionic villi, and through which the blood vessels have entered, and this is the uterine wall, and from there also the blood vessels have come, and produced the umbilical cord like structure. This is the umbilical cord, you can see here, through which the supply of the oxygen and nutrients to the embryo body, as well as from the embryo carbon dioxide and excretory material supply to the maternal body, both will be get performed. So this is overall the structure of the placenta. Okay, going for the next slide, and in the next slide we will be discussing about the organogenesis. In this slide we will be discussing about the process of organogenesis, where we can say that organogenesis is the procedure by which organs are getting formed within the embryo structure. Not only organ means external organ, internal organs and all of the structures will be getting produced, and in this specific process, the cells which are present in the germ layer, they will proliferate, they will migrate, they will reaggregate, they will differentiate into various tissue and various organs. So many types of activities, proliferation, migration, reaggregation, all kind of these activities will take place during this organogenesis mechanism. So organogenesis, we all know that first of all this organogenesis is differentiated into morphogenesis. Morphogenesis means formation of various kind of forms in the embryonic body, and after that differentiation of the cell. Because if the morphogenesis will not be happened initially, that means which specific limb, which specific organ will be taking which kind of structure, that will be not getting clear. And if the organogenesis later on differentiation, it will not take place, automatically the cells which are present in various regions of the embryonic body, that will not further differentiate and not produce various organ structure, maybe it is internal or external. So this is overall the organogenesis mechanism, where the various internal organs and external organs all are getting produced from the ectoderm, endoderm and mesoderm layer by the help of proliferation, migration and reaggregation procedure. Okay, so this is actually the organogenesis. So let's see during the organogenesis process whatever the changes are actually found in a weekly basis or in a monthly basis. This is actually the month basis changes actually which are found in case of embryo. Actually after 1 month of the development, we can see the heart is getting developed in the embryonic body. At the end of the second month, we can see the digits present in the hand and leg, that means in the limbs, they will be getting developed. At the end of the third month, that means after the first trimester, the limbs and external genitalia structure or genital organs, that will be getting developed. Maybe in case of male or female, external genital organ as well as hands and legs will be totally getting produced after the end of the third month, that is after first trimester. Next, after the end of the fifth month, it can be found that the first movement of the fetus has been started, and appearance of the body hair as well as appearance of the hair on the head also gets started. At the end of the sixth month, that means after second trimester, body is getting covered with the hair, eyelids are getting produced and eyelashes are also getting formed. After ninth month, that is that after third trimester, fetus is getting totally formed or fully formed, and that fetus is ready for the delivery. So this is the month-wise development of the embryo and further the development of the embryo into the fetus. So this is actually happening during the organogenesis procedure, formation of the each and every body part, each and every organ and each and every limb. Okay, so this is the sequence. Please go through this portion for remembering. Coming to the last two portions, that is not obviously the part of the embryonic development, but after getting the embryonic development over, when the baby is fully developed, how it will come out from the mother's body, that will be actually done by the process of parturition. So that's why this process is very much important. Keep it in your mind, average duration of the human pregnancy is about 9 months or 9 months 10 days, 270 days to 280 days, and that is commonly known as, that entire time period is commonly known as gestation period. So gestation period is a very important period on throughout which time the further zygote to embryo development within the maternal body it is taking place. Now continuous contraction and relaxation of the uterus causes the expulsion of the matured fetus, and that is called as parturition. So keep it in your mind here, just after the gestation period got over, the fetus is fully grown. Now due to contraction and relaxation of the uterine lining, the matured fetus will start expulsed from the uterus, and that is commonly known as parturition. Keep it in your mind, this parturition, whatever I am talking about, that is a neuroendocrine mechanism. Why I am telling it as a neuroendocrine mechanism? Because there is a neuronal control as well as endocrine control behind it. How? When the fetus will be getting totally produced, on that time from the fetus as well as from the placenta, signals are going, that is controlling the mild uterine contraction, and that is called as fetal ejection reflex. So when the fetus is getting totally grown and placenta has also totally grown, then it will be sending the fetal ejection reflex to the brain of mother, and this specific fetal ejection reflex, which is going to the brain of the mother, it will stimulate the release of the oxytocin from the anterior pituitary of the mother. Rather, we can say oxytocin from the posterior pituitary. It is not from the anterior pituitary, because oxytocin will be releasing from the posterior pituitary always. So posterior pituitary of the mother, and oxytocin acts on uterine muscle and causes vigorous contraction and relaxation, and this vigorous contraction and relaxation causes the expulsion of the baby out of the uterus through the birth canal. So keep it in your mind, this oxytocin hormone is very much responsible with the relaxin for vigorous contraction and relaxation of the uterine muscles, and that causes the delivery of the baby. So the parturition has occurred, obviously, it is very much clear, but after parturition it is found that with the baby the umbilical cord has also come out, and with the umbilical cord the placenta has also come out, and that specific structure is commonly known as afterbirth. So afterbirth is very important point, here I am writing it. Afterbirth is actually the structure that is containing both placenta and umbilical cord. They are coming out from maternal body during delivery. So that is commonly known as afterbirth, and this is very important, this afterbirth portion. So I think the parturition process is getting very much clear, and for that fetal ejection reflex, oxytocin hormone, these two things are very much important, and this is obviously a neuroendocrine mechanism. And what is afterbirth also, the placenta and umbilical cord that is comes out during the parturition time with the growing fetus or grown fetus, that is known as afterbirth. This is actually the normal parturition procedure. So at the head of the baby, head of the fetus, it will come fast outside, then the remaining body. Next we have come to the last portion or the last slide of this chapter, that is lactation. Lactation is actually after production or after delivery of the baby. Obviously in the maternal body, milk synthesis and milk secretion both will be getting started. Why? Because in this time milk will be getting produced by the maternal body so that the mother can feed the newborn baby. So how it is happening? The mammary gland of the female start developing during the time of pregnancy, we all know that, and start producing the milk towards the end of the pregnancy. That means when the pregnancy period almost it is getting ended, that means when the gestation period is getting ended, on that time the milk synthesis it will be getting started, and that process is commonly known as lactation procedure. Milk synthesis or the production get controlled by the help of the prolactin, and secretion or the ejection of the milk from the mammary gland, it is getting controlled by the oxytocin. So when the baby sucks the nipple, automatically there is a feedback mechanism it will start. When the baby sucks the nipple, automatically one reflex, suckling reflex, it will be going to the brain of the mother. From there, hypothalamus region, PRH or prolactin releasing hormone, it will be get released, coming to the anterior pituitary and stimulate the cells to release the further prolactin. This prolactin hormone is coming to the alveolar cells of the mammary gland and stimulate those cells for further milk production. Now oxytocin hormone is also getting released from the posterior pituitary. This oxytocin hormone will be also stimulating, or it is controlling the mammary duct and common mammary duct and lactiferous duct for further milk ejection, and just the milk will be getting ejected, the baby will start getting that milk. Here one more thing I want to say, that the initial thick yellowish milk which is getting produced by the mother, that is very much important, and that is called as colostrum. Why it is important? Because it is containing so many types of antibodies which provide the disease resistance for the growing embryo. So that's why this is very much important for the embryo. Keep it in your mind, this is very much important. Yes, for the newborn babies. Now the point is, I think this lactation procedure is also getting very much clear to each and every one. Lactation means not only the milk synthesis, also the milk secretion. And here one thing we have to keep it in our mind, that milk synthesis is controlled by the prolactin, but the milk secretion is getting controlled by the help of oxytocin. And obviously this lactation process will start when the baby sucks the nipple. Then only the suckling reflex has gone to the mother's brain, from their prolactin, and then oxytocin will be released, and they are responsible for the lactation as well as milk secretion. And the colostrum is also very much important thing, thick yellowish milk which is releasing first, and that is containing so many antibodies providing disease resistance to the newborn baby. So that's why lactation is very much important part. So this is overall the chapter. Last portion, fertilization, embryonic development, parturition and lactation. I think each and every information, each and every slide you have understood properly, and I think you have enjoyed this video a lot. So thank you everyone for listening this video. Thanks a lot.